Well, John Roskam is a senior fellow at the Institute of Public Affairs. He's one of the few people in public life who have been prepared to challenge the heavy-handed COVID-19 response from the start. Recently in the Financial Review, he wrote, "This time 2 years ago, it was almost impossible to find anybody against the policy of shutting schools, closing businesses and locking people in their homes to eliminate COVID-19. Both major political parties supported lockdowns, as did the expert and professional class and the mainstream media. To speak out against lockdowns was to be accused of having a reckless disregard for human life or worse. The response to COVID-19, wrote Roskam, would come close to the greatest public policy failure in this country since World War II. As a matter of first principles, a policy that's not allowed to be debated and treated as an article of faith should set the alarm bells ringing for anyone concerned about good policy making." John Roskam joins me now in the ADH's Sydney studio. John, as we speak, we're still waiting for an acceptable explanation as to why our former Prime Minister felt it necessary to assume the powers of Health Minister, Finance Minister, Resources Minister and other portfolios in order supposedly to better fight the pandemic. I suspect it'll be even harder to explain why he kept it secret, not just from the public, but from his ministers. But when it comes to public policy mistakes, I think what we're seeing here may be just the tip of a very, very murky iceberg. What's your view?
I think that's right, Nick. Your summary just then was an excellent analysis of what, as Australians, we've lived through for 2.5 years. As a born and bred Melburnian, what I and my family and Melburnians lived through as we suffered under the longest lockdown in the world. And I think there's a point that hasn't really been sufficiently discussed as yet in the early days of these revelations about what the former Prime Minister did, which is that perhaps some of what he did in those first few weeks of the pandemic was justified, although I doubt it. There are many well-established procedures for handing power between ministers. But the point that I don't think has been properly discussed is that when anyone is using massive, arbitrary executive powers like this, then you need more scrutiny, not less. You need more accountability and more public debate. So for Scott Morrison and those who've defended him in the last few days to say, well, we didn't know what we were dealing with, there was a large level of uncertainty, is all true. But that does not justify doing this in secret. And it goes to the points that you made, Nick, which is there was very little scrutiny about the entire process of the lockdown. There was very little debate about the data upon which these draconian measures were based. And now, as shocking as the revelations are of what Scott Morrison has done, at another level, they're simply a continuation of what we have seen for the last 2.5 years.